Kamikaze aircraft appear to be. It seemed like Chris, the daring driver, could do anything on the road. He may have been hell-bent on winning, but speed isn't everything in street racing. Even the most skilled drivers can't guarantee that they won't have bad luck in this risky game. At first glance, Chris appeared to have left an indelible impression on the world. However, his world was abruptly turned upside down when a horrific event occurred. In light of what has happened, what is his true fate? Everything changed that fateful day, and this is the tragic tale of Kamikaze Chris. No one would normally picture Chris as a street racing superstar. The terrifying flat black El Camino is his ride on Street Outlaws. No one anticipated he would succeed, but he always finds a way to shock them. The thing is, there was never any grand scheme behind it. For some reason, he felt compelled to follow this road. Being an outsider is something Chris has always done. Growing up in a low-income area of Oklahoma City meant that Chris had little resources. He went on to say that his family was bankrupt, not simply struggling, not the tight-fisted kind, where money is scarce, rather the kind whose thin, soiled, and worn-out hand-me-downs were more than just worn. Beyond the necessities, it was his decision to make regarding his wants. Plus, racing was Chris's one and only interest. Initially, though, automobiles were not relevant. If you were to ask Chris why he got his start on dirt bikes, he would likely say that he is more of a racer than a car guy. Whatever you put in his path, he will race it, a dirt bike, a shopping cart, or even a lawnmower, if it has wheels. He began riding a motorcycle at the tender age of 3, and never looked back. Even though other kids his age were playing in the park, he had to pull odd jobs to keep his bike running. Twice a week he would line up at the starting gate to compete against riders nearly twice his age. He was unfazed. He stood out because of his intense work ethic, passion for speed, and desire to win. His legendary drag boat driver father instilled in him the value of hard labor and the mantra, "You break it, you fix it." That rule was Chris's favorite. Cutting down trees, mowing fields, and pumping gas were all ways he could save up for his next ride. He earned every upgrade, beginning with a BMX bike and continuing on to his first dirt bike. Once he competed against real opponents, he was unbeatable. Plus, he wasn't merely racing at that time. In particular, he was assisting other people in making their vehicles go faster. Justin Big Chief Shearer and Kamikaze initially crossed paths while they were both still in high school. Two jigsaw pieces fit together perfectly. They were both fierce competitors who adored automobiles. Despite facing numerous obstacles, neither of them ever surrendered. The legendary moniker Big Chief was originally used by Kamikaze. Their bond was forged in the late-night mayhem of the garage, not merely through a shared love of speed. Night after night, Kamikaze would work on Big Chief's 1972 Pontiac Le Mans, affectionately called the Crow, in the garage. The guy who spoke a lot and drove quickly wasn't the only one. It wasn't merely a vehicle, it was the linchpin of their camaraderie, the product of their hands-on labor, pieced together one late-night repair at a time. That practical training was the turning point in Kamikaze's career. A Chevrolet Louvre with a small block was the first vehicle he obtained. A Blazer, likewise a diminutive block, followed. And in due time, a Chevelle with an A-body. But that Chevelle was out of this world. A 1971 model with a garish emerald green paint job that gave it the appearance of being on a baseboat. It wasn't attractive, but it was speedy and full of attitude, a noisy machine that was tearing up the streets. The cars come and go though, so the game never ends. Staying close to Kamikaze was a small group of OKC racers who weren't there merely to cruise. They wanted to win badly. It was mostly a hangout for the guys to show off their rides. Contrarily, the entire crew of Kamikaze, Big Chief, Dave Comto, and the others took racing extremely seriously. That devotion shone through in Kamikaze's driving. Even if it meant pushing the car down the road, he would do it if it meant winning. Although he was measured and not particularly wild, he pushed harder than most, walking a tightrope between order and anarchy at all times. The moniker Kamikaze originated from that. Even the most unbelievable things seemed effortless when he was around. Driving was an automatic motion for him. Kamikaze discovered tranquilly at full speed, inches from catastrophe, while others required a drink or diversions to escape. He flourished in that environment, the intensity, the risk, the boundless energy of knowing he was challenging himself and his vehicle to their limits. That was the thing that gave him life, and his attitude quickly garnered attention. He brought that unfiltered, no-holds-barred energy to Street Outlaws when he joined the cast in Season 3. In the wake of the show, a lot of people started watching drag races, and Kamikaze Chris rose to prominence and became a nationally recognized driver. Possibly the most renowned El Camino in the game was now his to proudly own. Prior to Chris acquiring it, the El Camino belonged to Tyler Flip, Pretty, a childhood friend of Chris's. As a result of its construction from repurposed components from friends' cars, the Frankenstein became the unofficial moniker. In any case, it became well known. When Flip appeared in the pilot episode of Street Outlaws, everyone was talking about his car. Not only was it loud, but it was also completely ridiculous. The story became even more captivating as the theories surrounding its construction grew. The bumpers were engulfed in nitrous fireballs by those zoomy headers. It was supposedly fixed using duct tape, sealant, JB Weld, and enough Bondo to fill a swimming pool. It hurt even more when Flip came up to claim his reward. Despite the chaos, it was over in no time. Justin Big Chief Shearer and Chris, who were longtime friends of Flip, were the rightful owners of the car upon Flip's death, without hesitation or second thoughts. For more than a year, the vehicle had been covered in a tarp, collecting dust, patiently waiting for the hands that could give it new life. It was as if the engine had been waiting for Chris the whole time. It roared to life as soon as he turned the key. However, such a vehicle was not going to emerge from retirement without a fuss. The problems didn't end there. On the very first ride, one of the back brakes burned up and locked up. Chris quickly damaged it to the point that it required complete reconstruction. That's when he made a deal to swap out his freshly built 582 engine for a friend's. Chris was enraged because he had always constructed his own engines. His prediction that 582 would become a nightmare came true. It was a season-long rebuilding spree. It was as if I were the team captain for a funny car. Repetition is key. Race fix, demolish, and rebuild. No one could have survived. However, when pursuing speed, that is simply a component of the game. Chris was eager to put the headaches behind him. He dialed the number. With the money he had saved, he collaborated with Graham Jones of Fast Times Motorworks to construct an aluminium 632 with 4 stages of nitrous. In addition, he and his friend Les were busy in the workshop changing the rear half of the chassis. The point is what? Return to OKC's top 10 list. It's that simple. As a result of his race victories and increased visibility in the summer of 2017, his name was once again on the list. However, something remained amiss. Due to the car's unsatisfactory performance, he was unable to find a comfortable position. Underneath the hood of the engine were both new and old components. Their sole purpose in being assembled was to travel quickly, with assistance from Wisco on the spinning system and Crower and Pack on the valve train. The engine was assembled in Arizona by Conca Racing Engines. Electronic fuel injection was implemented following the modification using components from fuel injector development, in conjunction with the Haltech EFI system that established the parameters. That identical Haltech configuration also powered the El Camino's 6-stage nitrous system, as if 4 stages weren't impressive enough. It was always challenging to gain traction with all that power. If the vehicle wasn't properly adjusted, all that power would have been for naught. Chris and Les had a new front end made out of chromoly tubes by AutoFit Race Cars in Maryland. Since the stock one wasn't fast enough, they assembled it in the garage. As part of their efforts to reduce weight, they also removed the radiator. Instead of using air to cool the engine, a tank in the back was now pumped with ice water. The suspension was adjusted with QA1 adjustable coilovers and pack springs on all 4 corners to provide the ideal level of control and power to the vehicle. Power and speed were transmitted directly to a Moser 9-inch rear end via a power glide gearbox on a 4.0 Mini Aggression. Nothing was done with the original 4-link configuration. Chris loved that the car, despite its updates, retained the spirit of a G-body. It was still quirky and unruly. Some things remained unchanged despite all the adjustments. Chris mentioned that the El Camino's stock wheelbase measured 117 inches in length, and that the driveshaft alone measured 62 inches. Not ideal for a racing vehicle, measuring 5 inches. It was not possible to shift everything back to improve the distribution of weight, since the cab's placement made it feel like a truck, despite being a car. Even with the best efforts of the 29 5x10 5 Hoosier Slicks, which attempted to cling to the track, every lap was thrilling, and that was half the joy. If Chris wasn't on fire, then everything was fine with him. To race is to live. It's more than a hobby. There is a tale of sacrifice behind every dingbat and late nights spent in the garage. It took countless sleepless nights, countless dollars, and sometimes even dollars he couldn't find, and a lot of bruised knuckles to build that car. Day in the day, he operates a modest HVAC company. As the sun sets, he spends the hours in the shed, cleaning the Lexan windows, inspecting the spark plugs, installing the tires, and checking the brakes once again. He takes every precaution, because he cannot afford to just throw money at problems. He defies expectations by competing head-to-head with industry heavyweights, despite being a working-class, self-funded, and garage-built car owner. On multiple occasions, his finances have taken a serious hit due to his racing. While taking part in this very program, he has been completely bankrupt. The underdog moniker though, that's the truth, not a trick. He'll tell you that's the secret to building, racing, and winning on an El Camino. He is both proud and obstinate. Obviously, he doesn't do it all by himself. Winning races aren't possible for great drivers alone. Haltech, Speedmaster and Wolf Aircraft Product are some of the companies that help him stay in the race. But at its heart, this car exemplifies the power of love, pride, and unfaltering resolve in the face of financial hardship. Chris will convince you that this level of racing is within your reach. A car like his could be made by anyone willing to put in the effort, the resources, and the passion. But here's the catch. Before doing something so powerful, most people think twice. Never did Chris. He's never been one to back down. After years of struggling with it, he has finally come to terms with it. It's all or nothing. He either achieves great success or utterly fails. And if you're familiar with racing at all, you know that's the mentality you need to come out on top. What he didn't realize was that the very vehicle that had propelled him to fame was also going to bring his downfall. So street racing isn't exactly a sport that promotes good health or ease of movement, but it's undeniably thrilling for speed junkies. The exhilaration, the raw power of high-performance machine, the nerves at the starting line, and the split-second decisions that can determine success or failure are all familiar to fans of Street Outlaws and its offshoots. Accidents happen in every sport. The lightning-fast transition from a highly optimized race car's peak performance to a twisted wreck never ceases to amaze, regardless of how frequently such incidents occur. No one knows it better than Chris Kamikaze and his legendary 1981 Chevy El Camino. Shooting Street Outlaws in July 2020 made it difficult for Kamikaze Christoph to understand the brutality of street racing. He had a totaled El Camino. There was more than just a minor ding or scratch on the bumper. The salvage of various components, including chassis, axles, engine, and turbochargers, was next to impossible. You might be able to salvage some components, such as the shifter, the back housing, and the parachute lever. After the fact, Chris recounted the events on his YouTube channel, Kamikaze Life. He wasn't in the mood to race that day, and the elk was already acting up. The driveshaft sensor was giving him trouble, but he couldn't resist accepting a dare from another vehicle. After just one race, his cherished El Camino had become a hulking wreck.